had maybe the best dunk of the playoffs last night and an injury scare to go with it to his right leg in the fourth. Kawhi lettered posterizing Derek Favors. Kawhi and Paul George both had 31. Marcus Morris adding double digits as well. Despite Donovan Mitchell finishing with 37, it wasn't enough. They clearly missed Mike Conley, who was out with a hamstring. The Jazz shot only 14 of 40 in the first half. Here's playoff Pete on Kawhi after the game.
You know what time it is. It's written all over him in terms of it's go time, it's playoff basketball, and ultimately it's winning time. And so you see it all around him. His approach, his body language, everything is to be great. And so he's leading the way.
This would be your first trip to the Western Conference Finals in franchise history for the Clippers. What would it mean to you and the organization to advance?
I don't care about the Western Conference Finals. I'm trying to win a championship. Obviously that's the next step, but right. I'm not even looking at that. So I don't even know we took criticism. I don't know what's going on in the outside world.
Max, who do you trust more now, Clippers or the Jazz?
The Clippers. And the reason is Kawhi is still playing and Paul George is still playing, right? And Mike Conley isn't. This entire playoff season has been determined by injury. You look at the Hawks-Sixers. You know who's going to win? If the Sixers are healthy, they'll win. Otherwise, the Hawks will win. Nets-Bucks. We all know the Nets are going to win. Unless they don't have their guys. Then the Bucks will win. Same thing with Clippers-Jazz. Right now, Kawhi's playing. Let's see how he responds because he didn't look great at the end of that game physically. And Mike Conley isn't. And since Paul George has shown up recently, the Clippers will win. Unless Mike Conley comes back and Kawhi's not playing or is a really diminished version of himself. Then the Jazz will win. Stephen A., if you're wondering, hey, let's say everyone's available. Who's going to win this series? The answer is the Clippers because Paul George has finally arrived in the playoffs, and he's done it for a couple games now. He keeps this up, the Clippers will win. But I do think the determining factor will be, does Conley get back on the court? And if so, can Kawhi stay on it?
Are you listening to yourself? Well, I trust the Clippers, and the Clippers will win. Unless Mike Conley shows up, and then they would lose. Kawhi could be Kawhi, and Paul George could be Paul George. But if Mike Conley shows up, but then it's the Clippers. But then again, it could be the Jazz because Mike Conley might show up. I'm going with the Jazz.
If Kawhi's hurt, don't misrepresent it. If Kawhi's hurt, don't misrepresent it. I'm saying if Kawhi's hurt and he didn't look great at the end of the game, the Jazz will win. That's why it's injury. If everyone's healthy, Clippers will win because Paul George has arrived.
Okay, thank you very much for that. If everyone's healthy, the Utah Jazz will win this series because I think they'll win both games in Utah. I think they win Wednesday, they lose Friday at the Staples Center, and then you got a Game 7 back in Utah, which I think that they will win because I think that Donovan Mitchell is the biggest star on the stage. I think he'd be a bigger star than Kawhi Leonard or just as big of a star as Kawhi Leonard, and the supporting cast of the Utah Jazz will come through. I love what I'm seeing from the Clippers. Having said that, Marcus Morris had a big-time performance last night. That can't go unnoticed. 24 points. You don't usually get that from him, but you got that from him last night, including 7 or 8 free throws, so I give him major props. Paul George and Kawhi both dropping 31. That's a beautiful thing. But the Utah Jazz are not healthy right now. Donovan Mitchell was not himself. I was at the game. He didn't look like himself at all. You should have saw him off camera, man, while the game was going on, Max. They're stretching him. He's laying back behind the bench near the tunnel, and they're stretching him and trying to put him through stuff during the game because he clearly was not healthy at all. You need him. You need Mike Conley. But if we're going to make the assumption everybody's healthy, then I've got to see it to believe that the Clippers would beat the Utah Jazz in Utah for a Game 7. If it was the Staples Center, I'd roll with the Clippers. But a Game 7 in Utah, I have a hard time believing that the Clippers team that we've watched over the last couple of years would win that game. I hope I'm wrong because unapologetically, I would rather be in L.A. than Salt Lake City for the NBA Finals.
Had a good
if it
night's
came
sleep
down
in Salt
to that.
Lake City, Steve.
But it's a beautiful city, and I heard they got nice burgers, but damn it, no. If I got a choice between LA and Salt Lake City, I'm going to pick all LA all day, every day.
Nice burgers?
Yeah, somebody,
You're hilarious.
No, they sent some dude, Molly, keeps setting my Get At Me segment on Stephen A's World on ESPN Plus. He keeps sending in these videos, bragging about the burgers that they got in Utah and how I need to come and get one
Very
of those.
cute.
Yeah, that's what he keeps saying. I ain't eating the damn burger, okay? But the point is, in the end, Utah is a pretty damn tough place to play. Their home crowd is sensational. I think it would, not Kawhi, but I think it would be a lot to ask anybody else, or do we trust that they'll come through when it counts in a Game 7? That's what makes Game 5 so pivotal.
First of all, a burger is the perfect food, and I would love to if they're bragging on the
This
burgers,
particular
I'd love
burger,
that.
Max, it looked nasty. That guy that sent it like bacon. It had some other stuff on there. I didn't like how it
With
looked.
bacon.
I didn't like how it looked. It looked like a heart attack waiting to happen.
Well,
that's my
okay,
personal
that's a separate
opinion.
story. That makes
Yeah,
it looks
looked
better.
like a heart attack waiting to happen.
Sounds
It didn't look
amazing.
healthy.
I don't think that you can set the reason I focused on health, Stephen A, is because did you listen to yourself when you went through it? You're like, I don't like the way Donovan Mitchell looks. Mike Conley's not playing. We just don't know who's going to be ready to play in terms of health.
But we
Even
all
Kawhi
don't know.
at the end of that game.
That's why you saw my reaction like that, because we all don't know. Obviously, injuries play a role. That's obvious.
Well, okay.
Obvious. So
Okay,
again, assuming health, this is where I stand.
Whoa.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, I get it. But what I'm saying is because of the compressed schedule and the shortened offseason, every fear about injury has come to pass.
By the way,
Stephen
question
A,
for you.
I don't ever remember injury having an impact on the playoffs on every series like it
Quick
does
question
right
for
now.
you. Quick
Yeah.
question for you, because I'm trying to figure out why you let players off the hook on this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Molly and Max. There was a 4.5-month hiatus because of COVID-19 before bubble play resumed, before play resumed in the bubble. Then most of the league was home by September, with the exception of 4 teams. So essentially, you come back for a month and a half, all right, after a 4.5-month break, and then you got 3 additional months off before the next season started, with the exception of about 4 teams, okay? So what the hell is all of this stuff about?
Well,
you
because
know
they are
what?
getting hurt.
It was a short. Well, because they didn't take care of themselves.
None of like Stephen A, think of how many. It would be one thing if it was a guy here or a guy there, but it's every walk of life, every size. LeBron, AD, Embiid, Harden, Kyrie. Just pick a team. Donovan Mitchell, you just said, is in bad shape. We saw Kawhi not looking great at the end of that game. Pick a series like Atlanta, the Sixers. Jamal Murray went out. Porter's back.
Nobody's denying the injuries. I'm just saying that you can't let people off the hook acting like they were playing all year long through the summer in October, and then they had to come back in December. That is not the case.
No, that's
for,
right.
For these guys. You have 4.5 months off.
For a lot of them, but let's put it this way, point blank. The right team won the finals last year. Everyone complains about the bubble. It worked out fine. The Lakers won. They were the best team. This year, I was where you are. Like, oh, stop, everybody. It's, 72 games. You can do it. But look at the results. Dude, every single series is being decided by injury.
And some dudes, not all, but some dudes didn't take care of themselves, and that's something that we need to highlight, because with the money that you're getting paid, it ain't like you got to go and work at Lowe's or Home Depot or something in the offseason. You got enough money to prioritize taking care of yourself, to making sure you're ready to roll once the season rolls around.
They used to do that in sports, major sports. The athletes,
they used to
great
do that.
players
That's
used
why
to
I
have
brought
to
that
go
up.
get jobs in the offseason,
That's not the
stocking
case now.
shelves and stuff.
Now with the money they're getting paid, you can take care of yourself.
Every
I mean, damn.
All right. Game 5 Wednesday. Let's go, gentlemen. When we come back, we'll